Hello and welcome to today's training video. And what we're going to be looking at today is how to create a form, and not just any form. What we're specifically going to look at today is how to create a basic or a simple form. We're also going to have another training session for how to create advanced forms, but that will come at a later time. Today, we're just going to look at something which is going to take you a few minutes to set up, and it's not going to have any complex logic behind it. So the first thing you'll want to do after login into your MembersVillage administrative panel is head over to Content and Forms. Now, this is our instance of MembersVillage. So we've got a whole bunch of forms already built out that we use for testing. You may see an existing form for yourself, or you may see none at all. However, what we're looking at today is how to create a new form. So we're just simply going to head over to Add Form and give that a click, which will bring up this pop-up. The one thing you do have to specify is a title for your form. So this is something you want to make sure that is easy for you to remember, so that when you're looking at a whole bunch of forms, you can easily identify the specific purpose of that form. So I'm just going to create a form that I will easily remember. And a couple of items I want to point out to you here on this pop-up. The title you have to supply. The group access you do not have to supply. And what using this field will enable you to do is restrict a form to a specific audience. So for example, I could create a form for members only, meaning not only would somebody have to log in and be authenticated by the platform, but they would also have to have access to the members group. However, for our purposes today, I'm going to be using just a regular public form. And moving on is the submission table. Again, because we're creating a basic form today, I'm just going to leave this set as create a new submission table. What that means is that the system is going to do all this back-end stuff for you and create the tables where the data is going to be collected. And what you also have the opportunity to do is take advantage of a couple of preset templates that we've created. So there's stuff like contact form, website feedback, career application, or a custom form. And that is the one we're going to use today, because I don't actually want any sort of predefined fields in there. Even though with these templates, you would be able to alter those fields anyway to suit your needs. What I'm just going to simply do is check off custom, and then have the system actually create that form for me. Now, once it's created, the shell at least of the form, I'm brought to the form editing screen, and we're going to cover a couple of items here. So we're going to cover the form fields themselves. We will look at settings. We'll skip over approval process because that's quite a bit more of an advanced form. We will look at notifications, and we'll also look at the share form tab as well. So underneath form itself, what you can see here is the columns that are available to you, or the different field types that are available to you that you can add to your form, and the columns that have already been added. So even though we created a custom form, there's a couple of fields that we're preloading for you, such as the form, some form data, the first name, last name, email, and phone number. And if these fields aren't really don't match your usage, you can simply go ahead and remove that field from the form itself. So now we're left with the first name, the last name, and the email address. What you can now do is go ahead and just start adding brand new fields. And what I'll do here is give a quick rundown of different types. So you've got your text fields. These are basically used to collect different types of text where a user can actually type into. So it could be just a one line of text. It could be a text block. It could be an email address. Whatever the type is, you can select one of those fields. After that, we've got numeric. So here you can collect numbers. You can collect a phone number, a dollar amount, or even a rating from 1 to 5. After that, you've got your date and time fields. Here you can collect a date only or time only, or a date and time combo. After that, you've got your choices, and here you can have a single select or a multiple select list. You can have a checklist or a static dropdown, like a hierarchy tree. Underneath other, you've got a few other useful items. You've got a yes/no switch. So for example, something where you want somebody just to have one of those two choices. You can have a reference. You can force people to, or not force, but you can allow people to upload an image or upload another type of file. You can have a color picker, or you can even have a signature field as well. This is where somebody will then have the ability to sign off on their form using their mouse or their finger on a mobile device. And there are also a couple of system items here as well. However, we're not going to be covering those today. So what I'm going to do now is I will go ahead and add a couple of fields, but before I do that, I'm going to head over to the Share Form tab. And in here, you'll be able to see two things. The first thing is that every form gets its own slug or unique URL or link, meaning you do not have to create a page to host the form upon. You can simply just create the form, add your content to that, and you're ready to go. You'll actually have a page. So I can see that by clicking on Public Preview. And I can see here that here's the initial form that I've created. Now, this form here is already pre-populating some data for me because I am logged into the front end already. So it's just basically able to associate those fields with my profile, just helping me out a little bit by pre-populating some fields on this form so that it saves me a little bit of time. Because we are creating a form which is not going to require a user to log in, this I'm not a robot will always be added to the form automatically, meaning you shouldn't get any automated submissions. That should allow you to keep a much cleaner data set of the submissions that you're getting. Coming back here, what you also have is the module code. What this little snippet does, it allows you to grab that snippet and add it to any content. You could add that snippet to a page, you could add it to an event, or you could add it to a news item. And what the system would do is then within that item itself, it would then draw the form and all of the necessary logic so that somebody could complete that form within your piece of content. Jumping back into the form, and I will sort of jump back between the administrative panel and the front end so we can see things actually happening and as close to real time as we can make it. What I'm going to do now is go ahead and add a couple of items. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a numeric field. So I'm going to go ahead and add a dollar amount. And when you're adding in a new field, it's going to ask you for a column header. Now, this is a header which you can use to quickly label a field that you will be able to identify as an administrator. Once the field has been added, what you will also be able to do by modifying the settings of this field is add a description or a full question, which will then be displayed to the person filling out the form. Meaning the header that you see on the administrative side can be nice and short, just so I know which column it is. But then the question can be really expanded. So and now if I go ahead and save this field and come back to the form, we can see here that the system is generating that new field with a much longer description of the field itself. I'm now going to go ahead and add a couple of other fields just so that we can sort of see them in action. So I'm going to go ahead and add date only. And within this pop-up, there's a couple of items here as well. So in addition to the header, there's also the active flag. So obviously, if it's inactive, it's not going to get used or displayed on the front on the form itself. If it's required, then the system will enforce that somebody completing the form will have to fill out that field. If it's not checked off, it's an optional field. And if it's shown in the default table view, it means for you as the administrator, when you're looking at the submissions, this field will show up in the initial listing. So these are really reserved for more fields of importance that you want to see right away in the listing, just to kind of get a snapshot idea of your data. I'm just simply going to hit add. And now we've got a date. And I'm simply also going to add a yes and no. And I'm also going to add a signature field. So now if we were to look at our form on the front end, we can see that we've got our yes, no question here, and we also have a signature field. And feel free to play around. And again, the best way to build a form is to sort of look at the requirements that you have for your data collection and then use the fields which are available here. The last thing that I will do is also show you how to create sections within your form. And you can create a new section by hitting Add Section. I'm just going to call this Party Details. So once again, the section name is something that you will see on the administrative side. And section header in this situation is what the person completing the form will see on their side. We're just going to simply add that. And if we were to go back to our form, we would see that this section has now been created. So what we can do at this time is actually move a couple of these fields. And instead of creating a new field, I'm just going to ahead and move stuff. What I'm going to do here is move in this "Do you like to party?" question. I'm going to put that under party details. And I'm also going to go ahead and move this signature field as well. And that's under party details as well now. So if we were to go back and refresh our form, you can see here that we have our initial basic fields. And now we've got fields which are particular to a section. You could also modify the details of the section as well by giving it an intro. So here is a bit of text. If I save that, we can see here that this text has been added, meaning both for the form itself and the sections within, you can give a little bit of context to the sections or the form for the viewer or the reader or the person completing the form. And that is an overview of the fields which are in here. I obviously, it would take quite a bit of time to run through each individual field. However, feel free to play around and figure out what sort of works best for you. I am reminded, though, as I'm thinking about this, that there is one type of field that I do want to show you how to do, which is a choices field. And while we have the static dropdown or checklist, etc., what these really are lists of values, meaning we're not having the user type something into the form. We're allowing them then to select from a predefined list. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a checklist, meaning a user will be able to select 1, 0, or 1 or more items from that list. So I'm simply going to click on that. And I'm going to just call it colors because what I want is somebody to select from a bunch of colors. And when you create a choice type of field, what you'll see here right away is that it says no choices. It means if we are looking at the actual form, there's nothing yet to select from. So what you want to do at this point is go ahead and click on the kebab here on the right and click on choices. And what this will allow you to do is then, especially if you're building a form for the first time, is add options to your form. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is add a few colors. And each option should be on its own line. And when I simply hit apply, those options are now available within the system for the form to actually use. So if we come back here and we refresh, we see here that the optional color field now has red, green, and blue. And somebody can simply check them off, during their completion process. What we also want to look at now is the settings. And I will definitely not be covering all of the fields within the settings tab because there's quite a few of them which are more advanced functionality. And again, we're just going to keep it very basic for today. So in here, the basic fields are the title. Again, something that you've created in that initial creation step. The introduction. Something you can specify, and this introduction item is going to show up at the very top of your form. So again, this would allow you to give context to the overall form. And then you can have context around each section if you decide to put in sections into your form. You can always give a submission open and a submission deadline date of your form, meaning, if I leave these fields blank as they are, that form is available at all times until I deactivate the form. However, I could restrict my form to a certain start time frame or a certain start date or a certain end date. You can also optionally specify how many submissions you're looking to have from a form. So for example, if you're looking to collect at most 10 submissions for a particular subject, you can just set that limit and the system will automatically turn off that form after that limit has been met. The item I do want to point out here is the sign-in user required. My form currently has no, meaning anybody can come along and they can complete this form without even having an account in my portal instance. Setting this to yes will ensure that the system forces a login process before they get to the form. However, again, I'm creating a simple form that I want anybody to complete, so I'm going to leave this off. The next item that you might want to look at is the indicate required fields. I have this set to no because what I'm letting the user know or the viewer know is that all fields are required, such as the first name, unless they're marked optional. So you have those two choices. You can either mark required fields or you can mark optional fields. It's really your preference and it's really up to you to know your audience better. However, we find that marking optional fields usually has a much better response versus marking required fields. Don't ask me why, it just seems to play out a little bit better. And what you can also do on this settings tab is also put in a thank you message. So this is just a simple message that the user gets upon submission. And the two other items on here is the active flag. So obviously if you set that to no, the form will not be available. So you definitely want that set to active. And listed means whether it will be listed within a forms listing that's built into the platform as well. So in my case, I'm not making it a listed form, so I'm going to leave that off. And that is the settings tab. Again, we're going to skip approval process. We're going to do that in a different training video, but you do want to come to the notifications. The first two fields on the notifications are the admin recipients and additional recipients. Admin recipients allows you to search your database for those who have a profile and then select those users, meaning as soon as somebody submits a form, this person would get a copy of the submission. Now, you don't have to choose somebody from the database. You don't have to choose anybody at all. The submissions will still be available within the administrative portal, but you can leave both of those fields empty, or you can type in an external address. So let's say you have a partner that maybe is handling the submissions or needs a copy of them. You would then be able to put in the email address of that third party that it should go to. The next item you want to do is, well, you may not want to do, you could definitely skip this step, but you may want to create a confirmation email. So this is basically on the right hand side, you can see the preview of what the email would actually look like. And this is the email that will get sent along with their details of their submission. So feel free to modify this as you need. And again, this is completely optional. If you don't want the confirmation email to go out, don't bother putting anything in here. Just leave it completely blank. The payment owing, you can definitely skip because that will be in an advanced video. So right now I've got my confirmation message. I got everything else set up as well. So I'm just going to save this form one more time before heading back here. And I'm just going to show you what a submission looks like. So here's my form. A couple of fields are already filled out. I'm going to skip everything that's optional. I'm going to make this yes. I'm going to make a happy face here because that's my signature. And I'm now going to submit the form. Now, this is what I get as the submitter, is an actual copy of what the submission looks like. And for you as the administrator, just coming back to the form, here's my form and my form listing, and we can see here that there's now a single submission. So clicking on the kebab allows me to view submissions, and clicking on that allows me to view the actual submission or submissions, from which I can always export the data if I wish to do so, or review or modify the submission if for whatever reason I need to adjust a little bit of data on this submitter's behalf. And that is it for our form tutorial in terms of how to create a basic form. Thanks for watching.